Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Jess De Los Santos. Here are today's top stories. The Bangko Sentral will hike interest rates by 75 basis points on November 17th. That's to match the latest tightening delivered by the U.S. Federal Reserve.
The agricultural damage caused by Typhoon Paeng climbs to more than 2.7 billion pesos, with rice as the most affected commodity.
Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui Bank will buy an additional 15% stake in RCBC.
And the hotel sector expects full recovery by 2024 as occupancy levels hit 60 to 80%. Let's begin our broadcast with Bangko Sentral Governor Felipe Medalla announcing that the central bank will match the U.S. Federal Reserve's latest rate hike of 75 basis points. Governor Medalla says the Fed's decision to increase its policy rate by another 0.75% supports the BSP's stance to hike interest rates by the same amount during its next policy meeting on November 17th. Medalla says the BSP deems it necessary to maintain the interest rate differential in line with the central bank's price stability mandate and the need to temper any impact on the exchange rate. The BSP has so far raised rates by 225 basis points this year, bringing the policy rate to 4.25%. Medalla adds that by matching the Fed's rate hike, the BSP reiterates its strong commitment to its mandate of aggressively dealing with inflationary pressures stemming from local and global factors. Now, over in the United States, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says interest rates could go higher than earlier projected, but they may soon involve smaller hikes. The Fed's latest tightening brings the benchmark lending rate to a range of 3.75% to 4%.
Today, the FOMC raised our policy interest rate by 75 basis points. My colleagues and I are strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. If we don't get inflation under control because we don't tighten enough, now we're in a situation where inflation will become entrenched. We have both the tools that we need and the resolve it will take to restore price stability on behalf of American families. It is very premature to be thinking about pausing. So people, when they hear lags, they think about a pause. We still have some ways to go. And incoming data since our last meeting suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates will be higher than previously expected. We have some ground left to cover here, and cover it we will.
Now, Moody's says the slower growth in China may send, quote, a significant shock to the Philippines and other Asian countries. Aside from its effect of trade and financial channels, Moody's explains that a slowdown in China's growth could also cause a decline in investments and business confidence. Citing a World Bank paper published in 2015, the credit rater says a 1 percentage point contraction in China's GDP would shave a 0.4 to 0.8 percentage point off the growth rates of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Moody's expects the Philippines to expand by 6.6% this year, settling within the government's 6.5 to 7.5% full-year target. Moody's sees China growing by 3.5% this year and 4.8% in 2023. In other news, the Philippine Statistics Authority says the country's palay output likely grew 2.2% in the third quarter. The PSA's latest estimates based on standing crop as of August 1st indicate that palay production possibly increased to 3.83 million metric tons. That's higher than the 3.75 million metric tons logged in the same period last year. The PSA, however, has not yet taken into account the impact of Super Typhoon Karding, which hit the country on September 25. Meanwhile, agricultural damage and losses from the more recent tropical storm Paeng now stands at 2.74 billion pesos. According to the Agriculture Department, the storm left nearly 75,000 farmers and fishermen reeling and a volume of production loss of over 111,000 metric tons. How will the devastation caused by Paeng impact the projected growth in palay output, and will this further slow down the growth of the agri sector as a whole? Let's get answers from Rosendo So, President of the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG. Sir Rosendo, good day. Thank you for joining us again. Like what we reported, damage to agriculture now at 2.74 billion pesos, the lion's share of which is rice. How is this going to impact our country's palay output?
Yeah, this fourth quarter, I think we are still targeting around 7 million metric tons. So the damage is somewhat little compared to the total harvest. We are still buying palay. The Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura committed to the government to buy palay and at 19 pesos and 20 pesos, in which we are continuing buying for the palay from the farmers.
We'll discuss more of that later. But when exactly do you think we're going, like what you mentioned, when can we feel the impact of the devastation of Paeng here? And at the same time, how exactly will consumers feel the pinch?
Yeah, Paeng, if we see the typhoon pass by somewhere in Mindanao, Visaya, and Southern Luzon, but the peak of harvest of palay is in region 1, 2, 3, in which the typhoon did not pass through here. So we expect, if you see the data of the data of DA, only 111,000 hectares, metric tons out of 7 million metric tons to be harvested. So
medyo minimal.
Yeah, that is minimal.
So
we think that will go higher to around 250. We estimate the damage for this typhoon.
Okay.
So at
Go
least
ahead.
supply and prices wise, mukhang wala tayong mararamdaman.
Yes, we still we continue to buy at 19 and 20. So we hope that the price will not affect the retail price. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, in terms of agri output and palay, is there a net positive growth that is going on in the sector despite these kinds of typhoons that are, of course, to some extent out of our control, driven by climate change? Some are saying unpredictable. But at the end of the day, may growth pa rin ba yung output ng palay, especially in the third quarter?
Yeah, dati yung third quarter, yung projection ng PSA, mukhang hindi ganun ka-accurate, no?
Okay.
Sinasabi nila 3.85. We think that because of the lesser use of inputs, ang ano namin is with talking with the miller, nasa 3.72 more or less, no? Ang estimate namin. So we hope that the PSA should review their figure and yung pino-forecast nila, yung typhoon na affected third quarter is hindi yung fourth quarter ang nakikita natin na maapektuhan dun sa harvest, no? So dapat ma-review ng PSA kung saan nila kinuha yung data nila.
Okay, but sir, in terms of the agri-sector in general, the growth targets of the PSA, 2 to 3% annually, is this a feasible target given the output impact of these typhoons?
Yeah. Yung problema, Dani, yung problema ng ating agrikultura is not typhoon.
Okay, driven.
Ang problema natin more on the importation. Last year, they lowered the tariff of pork, chicken, rice. No? So the industry is hoping that it will not extend the lowering of tariff after December, because the former president signed an EO to lower the tariff of MDM, to lower the tariff of pork, no? And of course, the rice from outside ASEAN. So, pagka yun ang gagawin ng economic team ulit ngayon, without passing to Congress, I think baka mag-negative na tayo next year, no? Dun sa hindi natin mahabol yung 2%. Lower pa lang.
Interesting.
Negative 2% siguro lalabas.
Now, sir, like what you mentioned earlier, the NFA and CNAG, you recently signed a deal to at least buy as much as 150 million pesos worth of palay from local farmers. Do you see this becoming a trend moving forward in order for you to boost domestic production, but at the same time, is this going to be a sustainable move?
Yeah, our move is has helped the farmers, no, to start to plant again. So we hope that the government, I think, want to petition again the tariff of outside ASEAN to be 35% tariff, no, and I think that will not help our farmers in the long run. So we hope that the government will stop issuing executive order that like the previous administration para matulungan ang ating mga magsasaka and mainganyo sila magtanim ulit.
Sir, how long can we keep importing bago po maapektuhan yung domestic production? Because of course, with these typhoons, baka the supply is temporarily disrupted and the prices for consumers will be going up. To what extent po are you willing to say na, okay, hanggang dito lang po tayo pwede mag-import?
Yeah, Dani, sa ngayon, the price of imported rice is higher than our local price. No? Kung makita mo sa merkado, ang presyo ng imported nasa 42 up. Ang local natin nasa 38 to 40 pesos. So, lower ang presyo natin dahil ang other countries also, their input also go up. No? Hindi lang dito sa ating bansa. So, kung makita natin is kailangan talaga mag-concentrate sa ating local para at least ma-encourage sila mag-tanim dito sa ating bansa.
Okay, very quickly, let's shift the discussion this time to sugar. I mean, we have yet to get figures as to how Paeng affected the sugar industry, particularly since it hit nga areas in Visayas and Mindanao. But then already you have some groups calling for interventions here, some wanting to at least hike the SRP from 70 pesos to 80 to 95 per kilo, as well as jack up mill gate prices here. What do you make of that proposal?
Yeah, Tess, I think we have to see kung I think the miller is asking for a higher price. Ano po yung binigay nila sa magsasaka natin? Mas mataas ba ang presyo? Bakit sila naghihirit ng additional? No? I think the 70 pesos is a win-win solution with importation and of course yung local produce. So we think that the miller should show bakit tataas ng 80 pesos.
At least provide basis for that. And then lastly, we do have seen some data as well showing that there might actually be some problem when it comes to bananas naman this time. Can you tell us more about that?
Oo nga.
Yeah, the banana industry has a problem of diseases. It will take around 1 year, maybe to 1.5 years to recover our production.
What exactly is the problem?
We still have a problem on our export. Yeah, but here in our country, we don't see any problem with our production.
It's more of us meeting the export demand requirement.
Yes.
And this is due to
going to other countries. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So watching out po for that impact on the importation as well as this export issue in terms of bananas. Maraming salamat po. That was of course Rosendo So, President of SINAG. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. The country's factory output grows at a slower pace in October.
More of that and other stories when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us. And I'm Danny Laurel. Now, U.S. federal...
U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has been aggressively hiking rates to historic levels in a bid to curb inflation, but a survey shows that Powell only seems to be running a never-ending marathon. Why is that? Let's get the answers from Scarlett Fu in this Bloomberg Quick Take.
Is Jay Powell running in what feels like a never-ending race? His goal of bringing down inflation through aggressive interest rate hikes is probably going to take the Federal Reserve on a journey that drags on and on. At least that's the read from a group of professional and retail investors polled by Bloomberg. When asked to compare Powell to a track and field athlete, most respondents said he's competing in a marathon, in part because of the delay between the Fed's action of raising borrowing costs and the reaction in the economy of prices coming down. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers agrees. He tweeted that history indicates inflation doesn't tend to fade quickly. Meanwhile, almost a third of investors in the Bloomberg survey compared Powell to a pole vaulter in a sign of concern over how high he'll go in raising interest rates. Whatever Powell's event, endurance will be a big theme as the central bank meets to decide on its next step. The Fed is waiting to see evidence that its series of rate hikes since March 2022 will weaken demand to borrow money, reducing spending in order to slow down price increases. For now, most investors are choosing not to make any big bets in stocks or treasuries, even as they see the dollar trading higher, in anticipation that Jay Powell will be running laps for a while.
The country's factory output grew at a slower pace in October, reflecting a modest update in new orders. S&P Global reports that the Philippines' Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, stood at 52.6 in October, lower than the 52.9 in September. But despite the slightly slower expansion, S&P Global says the Philippine index was still above the historical average. S&P Global notes that manufacturing companies in the country reported improved demand in October, driving growth in production. However, input buying activity rose at a slower pace last month amid increased inflationary pressures and higher demand and supply chain disruptions, leading to more work backlogs.
The Labor Department has issued guidelines on the optional wearing of face masks indoors. According to Labor Advisory Number 22, the private sector may now implement voluntary mask wearing in the workplace. Masks, however, will still be required in healthcare facilities, medical transport vehicles, and public transportation. The advisory also says that mask wearing is still highly encouraged for the elderly, individuals who are immunocompromised, unvaccinated, or symptomatic. Individuals with comorbidities and pregnant women are also highly encouraged to continue wearing masks. The Labor Department, however, says employers may still implement a policy requiring face masks in the workplace. This may be due to hazard risks such as poor ventilation, industry requirements such as food safety, or incidents of other communicable diseases like the flu or tuberculosis.
Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation will boost its stake in RCBC. Japan's second-largest lender has agreed to acquire an additional 15% stake in RCBC, raising Sumitomo's shareholding in the domestic lender to 20%. Reuters reports that the transaction is worth about $460 million. RCBC will also become an equity method affiliate of the Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group and Sumitomo Bank. Sumitomo Mitsui also hopes to leverage RCBC's branch network in the country to better support its Japanese customers seeking to expand in the country. The investment is also designed to boost RCBC's capital base.
Hotel occupancy levels are currently between 60 to 80%. This was reported by Benito Bengzon, Executive Director of the Philippine Hotel Owners Association. He notes, however, that the industry still has a long way to go before returning to 2019 levels. At the current rate, the industry expects occupancy to return to pre-pandemic levels starting 2024. Bengzon adds that the industry had been hoping for a boost from tourists during the long weekend of the last days of October. However, many travelers had to cancel reservations because of Tropical Storm Paeng.
All right, you for one were affected by that.
Exactly. Well, the worst things could have happened indeed.
Those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. But don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here in One News. Another Fed rate hike, another sell-off, but the BSP governor trying to assuage fears with his statements. Tell us more.
Exactly, Jess. Well, a lot of fears, and you can see the S&P 500 closing at 2.5% yesterday. Not just on the rate hike, because that was expected. It was going to be 75 bips, but mainly on the comments that more rate hikes were to come. And if you can take a look at Asia Pacific, I'm going to pull that out for you. You know, just a sea of red here, as expected. Again, you know, whenever that differential in the US and you know, emerging markets becomes too big, and the same will be the story for us here, just going with the rest of the tide, down a touch. So in the past 3 days, even ahead of this, we were already going down, but in the past 3 days, we've lost 1 7/10%. And a quick peek at the peso here, Jess. Interestingly, we have not broken through the 60, which of course was the promise of you know, the finance chief, and we are nevertheless weakening a touch, but still trading at 58 levels to the greenback. And again, the next meeting for the BSP will be on November 17th, where they have already pre-announced the 75 bips rate hike, Jess.
Now, of course, we have to zero in on the banks after that big story on RCBC and Sumitomo. How's the tie-up affecting the sector?
All right. Well, you can see that the sector is being sold off on the back of a series of rate hikes over in the US. So it's down by 0.9%. Meanwhile, RCBC is on a trading halt from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. And like you mentioned, we actually have some more details. I'm going to pull that out for you. This now brings in 21.7 billion pesos worth of equity. Wow. They're going to be buying that at 71 pesos a share. I'm just going to pull out RCBC for you guys here, even as it's in a trading halt, just to see, you know, how that has performed. It's actually done pretty well compared to its peers, and you can see the year-to-date chart here, going up while the rest of most of the stocks here have been going down. So again, RCBC, SMBC, that Sumitomo Mitsui will have 20% stake in RCBC, and RCBC will become an equity method affiliate company of Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group and SMBC, Jess.
All right, Dan. And lastly, let's talk about Dennis Uy. Assets up for sale.
More assets up for sale. This, of course, is a Reuters report. They have not necessarily commented on this, but recall that they had already said before they're always exploring opportunities that would be beneficial to the group. And the next, what we are hearing, at least from a Reuters report, is that they're mulling the sale of Conti's and Wendy's, and that they could fetch as much as $200 million for the two assets combined. And I can just think of checking in on two food stocks here that might possibly buy, and that's of course JFC and Max's, who own already a majority of all the food groups here. Just a quick peek on the past 3 days. JFC is up by 1.15% to 106 pesos. Max is down by close to 3%, trading at 66 pesos and 67 centavos, Jess.
Right, wouldn't mind a slice of cake this morning. That's it for today, November 3, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.